Today's market call is presented by Robinhood. Take charge of your trades with Robinhood's powerful new free desktop trading platform, Robinhood Legend. While there is no cost to use the Legend platform, there are other fees associated with your brokerage account. See the Robinhood financial fee schedule for more information. Wednesday, December 10th, 11 a.m. on the East Coast. That makes it 8 a.m. on the West Coast. That's Dan Nathan. I'm Swizz. We got Obi joining us in just a minute. Of course, Obi of Robinhood fame.
Head of Education, Mike Obucina. We just call him Obi.
That's what I just said, Obi.
We have a lot to go over with Obi because we still have some big earnings, guy. I mean, this is
got the Broadcom,
Oracle,
comes out AVGO, the Oracle. Yeah,
Obi. You've been calling it.
We got Fed meeting. Woohoo!
Do you remember what Broadcom's ticker was before they
BRCM? I believe it was.
Yeah. So I just had Jim Lanzone, who is the CEO of Yahoo, okay, on the Risk Reversal podcast. Actually, we are relaunching OK Computer. So it was the first OK Computer on the relaunch. And he worked at Ask Jeeves. Do you remember Ask Jeeves? It was
when you wanted to find something out, you asked this Jeeves person.
You would ask Jeeves. But we were going over a bunch of these like old internet stocks from the late 90s. And I got all the tickers in my head. He said CBS Sportsline, SPLN, CNET, that was easy, CNET, Lycos, LCOS, At Home, ATHM. I mean, I could go on and on here.
Yes.
XCIT. Do you remember these stocks?
Yeah, like back of my hand.
Pets.com, PETS. That was easy enough. Before we get to the Fed, it's really interesting, guy. Yesterday, the market was like dead flat, right? Today, the market's dead flat. But there's still like a lot of stuff going on. I mean, yesterday it was JP Morgan that got nailed off the CFO comments. Today, and they're bouncing, they're green, right? Today, we're seeing a lot of weakness in tech. Like I looked up because I was doing this podcast the last hour, look at my FactSet machine and my Legend, by the way, I got that thing on. Microsoft's getting killed. It's down nearly 3%. NVIDIA down 1.5%. What do you make of the fact that
I'll tell you what I make of it. You know, I think the market is taking a fresh look or different look at the spend that's been going on. And I think what people are saying, or market participants are saying, like, wait a second, you know, maybe we've baked too much in this spend cake, and maybe we should be reevaluating what the return on investment of the spend is going to be. And maybe Apple actually has it right, letting other people do all their dirty work and do the heavy lift before they sort of immerse themselves. And I think to a certain extent that's going on. And, you know, I don't think, as much as I'd like to believe this NVIDIA news with China is encouraging and bullish, you have to ask yourself, you know, what's on the other side of that? And what promises were made on the other side? So I think the tech trade is correctly under pressure here. And I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. And I'm glad that you mentioned Microsoft, because here at 478, this is the lowest level we've seen since June, just for perspective. So, you know, since the all-time high that we made, I think in middle October, I mean, the stock is not traded particularly well.
Yeah, and on a day like today, where I don't see any news, look at that sitting right on that 200-day, or it bounced off of there. It looks like it's going to be testing it again. This is one of the worst-looking charts, I think, in all of tech.
You have the double top, so you have a little gap, and we'll see if we break the 200-day. Now, I guess the encouraging thing is we've held it. When we opened through it back in May, obviously we never took another look. The fact that we bounced off it a few weeks or so ago, I guess, is encouraging. But if we were to close below it, this is just me, you know, I think you're going to get a gap close, and that gap is probably 415 or something ish.
Well, off the highs, guy, that would be like more than $1 trillion in market cap. Just think of that, right? You know, the information had a story out this morning, and this is something we've been talking about, actually. DeepSeek has used banned NVIDIA trips. And, you know, I said it last night on Fast Money. I mean, there's a huge black market for these things. There's data centers outside of China that, like, these model makers, look at Jacob, just Johnny on the spot, that these model makers have been training their models with.
Can we go back down for a second? Because I love nature. That's I believe that's a blue whale.
Not a white whale?
Could be a sperm whale. I'm not sure exactly. Well, so no, because if it were a white whale, it would be white. Yeah. There's no such thing as a white whale in nature. There are beluga whales,
Yeah.
I believe, which are white. I think that's how you pronounce
Yeah.
it. But
But they're
those are
small.
smaller.
Are
This
you
is
are
yeah,
you
go ahead.
Ishmael? Are you Ishmael?
Call me Ishmael.
Oh, I'm not gonna call you Ishmael. So Ellie, who goes to your
That's
alma
your daughter.
mater,
Yeah.
that's my second daughter,
By the way,
who
she reached out to me on the LinkedIn. We're connected now.
really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Uncle Guy. I talked to her the other day, and she says, "I'm reading Moby Dick."
As she should.
She doesn't like it, by the way.
It's a long ass book. There's a lot going on. You got to really grind through it because
Okay.
you're waiting for like the fun scenes, like harpoons and stuff. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of that.
Really quickly, let's hit Palantir. We got to get to Obi because we got a lot of earnings to talk about here. So Palantir gets a couple $100 million contract from the Navy. Like they don't recognize that contract right out of the gate, right? There's a company that might do $6.5 billion in revenues next year. So let's be generous and say that's like $60 million a year. Kind of a rounding error, I mean, like if these are the sorts of announcements that are meant to get investors really excited. I mean, I think it's good to get multi-$100 million contracts, like, you know what I mean, especially if it's on their AI platform and the like. But I just think it's important to kind of check all this stuff, be like reasonable about it, because if Microsoft can sell off 2.5%, nearly 3% on no news at some point, I mean, I think some of these guys are going to follow suit, but who knows?
Now, listen, this is now, I think at its zenith, Palantir was a $500 billion company. I think it's about 430 now, 435. And, you said if you want to be generous, $6.5 billion of revenue, you want to call it $7 billion of revenue. But you're talking about a company in terms of price to sales at its levels that historically is unsustainable. Now, the optimist is going to say they're going to grow into that number. And, even if it's going to be very hard for them to grow in that number. And you mentioned the fact that it's a Navy contract, which is fine. But one of the bull cases for Palantir for a long time was their ability to sort of differentiate their business and get away from more government contracts and get into these small and medium-sized, the MSBs, as they say, medium-sized businesses. And to a certain extent, they're doing pretty well there. But it's a real stretch in terms of price to sales to continue to be optimistic here, although a lot of people believe that this will be one of the next $1 trillion companies. I'm not one of those people, by the way.
Yeah. I want to pull up a name that I know you were very bullish on. You were early.
Oh, please.
You were early on thinking that they were not going to be as hard hit by tariffs. Okay.
General Motors.
How did you know that? What do you O's the Mentalist? Honestly, we did not plan this.
No, we didn't plan this.
So,
well, you know what? It's the cheapest thing you can do is do what?
Pay attention. There was a time, and I want to go back to, this is a 50 or low 50s stock, and you thought it would get back to that prior high, going back to early 2022. It literally on that earnings, it broke out. I think you were pretty happy about that. It consolidated. This move over the last few weeks, though, it literally has gone parabolic. I mean, what do you do with a stock like this? You've been talking about delinquencies and auto loans. You've been talking about a consumer, that's actually pushing back from some big purchases. This stock seems to be saying something very different about a U.S. consumer and a consumer that's strapped by, inflation, because it's sooner or later, they're going to have to pass through some of these increased costs.
Fair enough. And I think right now the market is rewarding them just to get back to some semblance of a reasonable valuation. But I think to your point, there's going to be a day where the market says, well, wait a second, this is still an auto company. And if things are slowing down and if the consumer is strapped, we have to re-rate this thing. So my point about General Motors earlier this year was I did not think this administration was going to talk in a way that knocked this stock much below 45 or so. And that actually wound up being the exact right level. And if you remember, when there was weakness in General Motors, for whatever reason, the administration made some allowances or made some pivots that sort of took some of the bullseye off the back of General Motors. So that was right. What do you do now, I think, is your next question. And I think you have to take money off the table. I think it's going to trade back down. Remember, this is the second iteration of GM as a publicly traded company. So the prior all-time high was back in the fall of 2021, around 63.5, 64. I think it's logical to think we're going to have a back and fill and trade back down to that prior resistance level.
All right, let's hit another one.
Man, put a longer term chart so people can see, Jacob. So just so they don't think I'm just making this shit up. See, there you go, bitches. Keep going. There you go.
Is that Jake? Is that
No, no,
direct?
no, no, no,
Jake
no,
and
no,
me?
no, 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 no.
Okay.
You
Here's
can
another
draw a
one.
horizontal line across those. You see what I'm looking at.
So here's another one. So people are following this Netflix, Warner Brothers,
Yes,
Paramount thing.
yes.
So let's pull up Netflix for a second. So last week, I was not that I had any special knowledge one way or another. I just didn't think Netflix really was in it like to get this Warner. It just didn't make to me it didn't make a lot of sense. I know the back and forth why it does the catalog and this and that whatever. But now obviously Paramount is I think they're suing Warner and they're putting in a hostile bid and all this sort of stuff. And it seems like they're going to try to get it. President Trump said, he had to look at it from a regulatory standpoint. He didn't like the Netflix deal, but he likes the Paramount deal. Paramount's run by David Ellison, whose dad is Larry Ellison, who's the CEO, founder of Oracle, pretty close to the president. So let me ask you this. If you were the mindset that, Netflix was like, okay, they could use this asset, but what if they just if Paramount was the one that was really contesting them? They had the Taylor Sheridan guy who makes, hit after hit.
I think he's an alien, by the way. You look, sorry, Amanda's great, by the way. The guy, look at all the shows he's part of. Like, how is he so prolific in his writing? It's crazy.
Yeah.
He did Mayor of Kingstown. He's everywhere.
All the Landman, all of the Yellowstone.
Tulsa King. It's nuts. Anyway, sorry.
He also wrote two of my favorite movies, Sicario and the second Sicario. They're just awesome movies. But somebody I read yesterday was like, well, maybe they put this bid and they lock up Paramount. You know what I mean? Like they basically get fine. Sheridan signed a deal to go to NBC Universal.
Yeah, he left Paramount.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's still making stuff. All right, so back to Netflix for a second, guy. Like, if they get outbid, let's say by Paramount, where's the stock go? Like, doesn't it have to go up like dramatically or no?
No, but it goes up. I mean, I think we had this conversation, I think on Fast Money last night or 2 nights ago. I apologize, but my question was exactly that. What happens if they either step away or if they get outbid and they don't win this? What happens to Netflix stock? And I think you can see a relief rally back to the 200-day moving average, which is probably about 114. And I think that's what you're going to see. Now, we were correct. Not we. Tom Rogers was correct back in June, saying that the quarter they reported, he was on the show that night. He was not as enthusiastic as he has been. He was seeing some concerning things around the edges, and he was right to be concerned. I didn't think the stock would get down here, but here we are. I think a lot of that negativity has been priced in, and although it still trades at a premium valuation, it's not nearly as rich as it was. So I think if there's clarity on this front, and if they don't get it, I think you're going to see the stock bounce up to about 115. So I do think you can play from the long side.
All right, last one before we get to Obi. So yesterday, JP Morgan CFO, she had the Goldman financials contract. She makes some comments about, cost, AI spend, a couple other things. Investors didn't like it. Go to a 3-day chart, Jacob, if you don't mind, really quickly. That was a huge move.
Huge downtrend. And it happened during the show. I said, what the hell just happened? Or maybe it was during the conference call, but something happened. And
yeah. And so investors shot first, asked questions later. So do you think today it closed down? I mean, it was down 5% from its highs, but then it was down, I think closed down 4.5%. Do you think today's bounce of like nearly 2%, is that impressive? Let's make a 1-year chart here. It's obviously been range bound. Tim Seymour last night on the program said he thinks it's an opportunity. What's the opportunity in your mind? You see this, it's going back and forth in this range.
I have been not concerned. I've been skeptical about JP Morgan on valuation for a while. And then when Jamie Dimon talked about the expensive nature of his stock and how they were not buying stock, that just sort of reinforced and galvanized my thoughts. However, I was quick to point this out, Jamie Dimon said the same thing when the stock was $205 about a year and a half ago, and the stock then rallied 55-60%. So I think what you learned from that is that metric alone is not a timing indicator. However, what I think it does is gives you less and less cushion on the downside. And yesterday was an example of how quickly things can change. So Tim has been right here, but I think yesterday was a glimpse of the hair trigger that the market has right now on any way that they can find any flaws with the banks. You'll see how quickly they'll trade lower. So I think we're going to trade the 200-day moving average, which is about 280 or so. And I think yesterday was sort of the first foray towards that.
Yeah, it looks like that would be like decent support. It'll be back towards those February highs by the time it gets there, unless it's in one fell swoop. All right, Guy, the aforementioned Mike Obucina, the head of research at Robinhood. There
Right in the middle.
he is.
Right in the middle.
Obi, you affectionately know him. Obi, how are you, man?
I'm good. How you guys doing today?
Pretty good. Pretty. By the way, Guy, you always say 11 a.m. on the East Coast, 8 a.m. on the West Coast.
But it's like 10 a.m. there or something.
10 a.m. Central.
Yeah.
What do they call that? They call those. I've never used this term, so I'm not going to start now. But there is a term for states that you fly over, Dan.
Yeah, but I don't think it's as derogatory as you think it is. All right, Obi.
Yes.
We're bringing in the big guns here. Okay, 2:00 we have a Fed decision. 2:30 we have a Fed presser. I mentioned this yesterday. The S&P back on December 18th of 2024, we got a hawkish 25 basis point cut. That is becoming consensus about this meeting and what Fed Chair Powell might do and say. That the stock market sold off 3%. So we just talked about JP Morgan selling off 5% like that. The stock market, the S&P selling off 3% from 2:00 into the close on 4:00, pretty dramatic. Walk us through a little bit about what the 0 days expiration options in the S&P or the SPX, like show us how you are figuring this out. Show us how the straddle looks on the payout diagram, because I think that's something that's really instructive and it's really simple to hit very quickly.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to note is when people quote the VIX, remember the VIX itself is measuring implied volatility 30 days out. So that's measuring what's going to happen in the second week of January. When you go to SPX and you look at your option chain, you can see what the implied volatility is for the 0-day options expiring today, tomorrow, and on Friday. And you can see the implied volatility of the 0-day options are about 32.5%. Compare that to a VIX that's trading at roughly 17. So you can see there's an implied move happening today. Obviously, we have both the Fed announcement as well as Oracle earnings after the bell. And so what do you do with that 32% implied volatility? Well, the simple thing to do is just divide that by 16. You get 2. The market's implying roughly a 2% expected range today, or plus or minus, we'll call it $50 to be even. If you look at the straddle, that might be slightly different. We're kind of dead center between the 40 and 45 strike. We'll just use the 68.45 strike. That straddle pricing about $40, so a little cheaper than the overall expected move that the pricing model is showing. But prepare for some volatility after the announcment. I always tell new traders, they want to put on a position before the announcement and predict something. I've learned, to the detriment of my account balance, sometimes it's better to wait for the noise, wait for the algos to do what they want to do. And then usually in the presser, you start getting like a directional move off of some levels that maybe you can trade off of.
Yeah, what I've learned is you sort of fade that first move. The question is, how long do you have to wait? Because we've seen some exaggerated moves for sure. And the fact that you bring up now of that implied move, I think the market is setting itself, it's waiting for some fireworks, whether to the upside or the downside. And if I hear hawkish cut one more time, I think I'm going to scream. But I think with enough people talking about it, I think that's been pretty much priced in. But let's quickly, Dan, if we could, go to the TLT, Obi, and we've talked about this. And obviously, this sort of is the inverse of what's going on in bond yields. And this is what I've said for a while. And if you go longer term, we've been flatlining around these levels for the last couple of years. And you got to go longer term than that. And you'll see what I'm looking at. Here we are just sort of muddling around the bottom. I look at this and say, the fact that we can't bounce, given all the rhetoric, suggests that TLT goes lower, rates higher. Other people will say we're on the precipice of a bearish to bullish reversal. I guess maybe you don't know until you do know. And that's not meant to be glib, but I guess my point is when it breaks one way or the other, you sort of ride that momentum. Is that sort of the way you look at this?
Technically you're spot on. It's sort of just laying on the ground here. And we've got a flat 200-day moving average is trading right near there if we get real close. And then on the implied volatility range of TLT, I don't know if it can go any lower. Its 52-week low is 12.15%. Current IV is 12.61. So we are on the absolute rock bottom low end of the implied volatility for TLT. And the analogy or lesson I like to teach people is markets go from not being volatile to volatile. And the question is, what's going to be that catalyst? Is it not just the Fed announcement today, but I was watching your guys' pod with Steph Guild that you just did this week, talking about what the bond market is talking about in terms of who the next Fed chair might be. You've got the turnover to the new year. You always tend to get a little volatility on the other side of January 1st.
Yeah. And I think the point you make, and Guy and I try to make this point too, is like everybody loves the action, right? I love the action. And you just said to the detriment of your P&L. Sometimes you have conviction. Sometimes you convince yourself of things, right? And you want to be there because you want to get the move. You want to be right. But oftentimes, especially if you're using options, we make this point all the time. You got to get timing right. You got to get direction right. You got to get magnitude of the move right. And so sometimes that's really hard. But the flip side of this is like, let's say you're buying TLT because you think rates are going lower, but then, you have some funky move like we saw, back in September of 24. And, like there's a whole host of things, that can go wrong. Guy, by the way, you and Doug Cass, like I think you share a lobe.
Brain.
Yeah. Look, I love this. Now he goes hawkish cut. Now mentioned 28 times since 6 a.m. And, I think what the important takeaway about that, is like how you think about sentiment, right? Like how you think about if everyone's on one side, you know what I mean? Or something like that. And listen, sometimes the consensus is just right, but we have no idea. It's not just what the Fed statement is. It's like what sort of questions he's going to get and how careful he wants to be with his answers, right? And so I think to your point, Obi, about you get the statement at 2, and then you have the presser that's going to go on for 45 minutes, and a lot of things can happen. And Guy, you just mentioned sometimes you like to fade, right? That first move.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I thought Obi was going to apply. Yeah, I mean, I think that's historically, since we've been doing our show, at least here, and definitely since we've been doing Fast Money, I mean, that first move is the one to fade. Now, the next day is an entirely different thing, but the knee-jerk reaction typically in the first few minutes is one that you want to sort of try to take the other side to. The problem, of course, is they're usually so dramatic, it'll appear scary as shit if you do it, or if you want to do it.
No, hey, Obi, since we did that little explainer on the legend a few weeks ago in the S&P futures, let's look at some levels in the futures here because, obviously they're going to be the first thing to move, right? And I want to see what you're looking at here because, again, I mean, I'm of the camp. Forget the term that Doug just mentioned and you just mentioned you're sick of. I just feel like that this Fed chair has every reason to kind of really be data dependent, as he said, that he has every reason to think about what his legacy might be. He has every reason to think about what the handoff might look like to whoever is named as the next Fed chair. And, I think, he tries to be apolitical. You could say, well, under the last administration, he did things that were, deemed to be political, that sort of thing. One thing we're certain about, and it will not be a debate, is that the loyalty test by the next Fed chair is going to be clear. And we know what, folks want to happen. The flip side of that, and Guy, maybe before we get to go Obi in the levels, the flip side of that, we have the president in Pennsylvania trying to make a case that affordability is not a thing. But if they go and do, and we know this, okay, we know affordability is a thing. We knew it was 3 years ago. We know it is now. Some of the things, he wouldn't be rolling back, tariffs on, coffee and meat and bananas, and he wouldn't be giving $12 billion to farmers, right, if we didn't have these sorts of issues. So how much do you think that guy plays into this?
Well, I think it plays into it. Well, let's just talk about it real quick. I mean, if the economy is basically people buying things and feeling good about things, it's pretty clear right now that although people are still buying things and that's manifesting itself in the numbers, they don't feel good about things. And that puts us, I think, right on that hair trigger that I mentioned before, because if things start to deteriorate even more, that consumer spending, which has still been there, is going to really slow down and ratchet to a halt. And I think that's the underlying concern about the economy and then subsequently the market. I'll say this as well. I think you learn the lesson that don't try to tell people how they should be feeling, because people know. So I think that the last administration made that mistake. This current one is probably in the midst of making a similar mistake. People are hurting and they don't want to hear otherwise.
Yeah, and it's not like, do as I say, not as I do, or whatever. And the point I make like, if the markets become convinced that rates are coming down 100 basis points in 2026 or more, then inflation expectations, they're not going lower. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the point. And I think that's what I'm trying to say about Powell and what he wants his legacy to be. Right. All right, Obi, let's go to the S&P futures here, brother. What are some of the levels you're looking at, and how can people interpret some of these annotations that you have on there?
Yeah, just real quick, starting at the top and bottom, I think going back from the last sort of rally we had on November 25th, we've just been in a range between 6,800 or 6,900 on the upside, 6,800 on the downside. And it has just been chopped. Like, it is, the markets have been like watching paint dry on a daily basis. You get like 10 handles up, 10 handles down, and just sort of a grind higher. And then starting this week, we started to grind back lower. And here we are today at 68.50, sort of dead smack in the middle of that 50-point range that the options are implying. And this is once again where, you may see some levels we're trading, but this is, for me, at least personally, just sort of take your hands off the wheel day and watch. But seeing some short-term bearish indicators, you've got the pivot point ranges trading above current price, and you can see those have acted as kind of resistance over the last two trading sessions. Below price right now, we've got three moving averages almost starting to align right around 6,800. We've got the 14, 30, and 50-day moving averages sitting below. So all of this just tells me, like, one, you've got to wait for the announcement. You've got to see what happens during the presser. If you get a break above 68.70, be careful because a trader might look at a pivot point range like this, try to get long above the pivot range, short below it. But you can tend to see big swings that immediately, to Guy's point, get faded, and then you sort of, get an opposite move in the direction. So this is going to be a tricky day where everything's kind of centered around 68.50. Will it trade above or below the round numbers? To be seen. But until we get out of this 100-point range, I truly don't have a sense of the direction of the market outside of that 100-point range.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'll sort of say this. You have sort of cross currents in the form of banks, industrial, small caps all doing well, which sort of augurs for the broader market to sort of act in kind. The flip side of it is some of these big cap tech names we talked about. We mentioned Microsoft earlier, are seemingly starting to roll over, which augurs the exact opposite for the broader market. And I think that's why you're seeing sort of this push and pull. I'll also say this, days like today when people are short volatility, and there are a lot of people out there that are playing vol on the short side because they've been rewarded, this is the days that they sort of get chopped up, because as the market goes higher, they get shorter, which means they have to buy more. And then conversely, when things start to go lower, they get longer, which means they have to sell more. So they wind up sort of chasing their tail. Dan, we call that bad Greek or negative whip. We used to learn that in that great show Options Act.
They're short gamma, and when that comes in, they've got the hedge, and yeah, it gets them on the wrong side of a position for sure, Guy.
Orange whip.
Orange whips.
By the way, that's easily the best Chicago movie. Isn't that fair to say?
It's up there without a doubt. Blues Brothers fan. I mean.
So for some reason, Obi,
Ferris Bueller's pretty good too.
I was going to say Ferris Bueller's the best.
You didn't join us. The night was September 10th. It was the second night of the Hood Summit. Myself, Danny, Vinny, Porter, Guy, you should have been at this place, Piero's. It's off the strip. Amazing old school Italian. We were told at the time there was a couple scenes in Casino, one of your favorite movies. We'll put it in the top 10 of mob movies, guys. Is that fair for you? Top 10?
I'd have to think it through, but I love the movie. I think it's underrated.
Okay. So there was a scene there, and our friends Anita and Colleen from CME Group were with us. And whatever, there's some stuff flowing, and we got into favorite Chicago movies. And it was The Fugitive was in that list.
Well,
Um,
Untouchables has to be on that list.
which one? Untouchables was on that list. Ferris Bueller was on that list. What are we missing here, Obi? Like, what are like the pride of Chicago? You know, what are some of these?
Well, I'm going to go with Carter Evans 9974 in the chat. Home Alone.
Yep. Jacob
in
stayed home alone.
Northern suburbs of Chicago. Wayne's World.
Wayne's World.
World.
How about 8 Men Out? Wasn't that
Oh,
about?
yeah.
Look at that.
That made the list because Danny, you know, is a gambler. He had that one. I think we're missing a couple, but you know, that's a good list right there. It's a pretty good list.
Yeah.
Sorry about that aside, people. Let's talk Oracle. Guy, we'll start with us.
Yeah.
Okay? We've spent a lot of time talking about Oracle since September 10th. That was a segue, by the way. Piero's was great. The Chicago movie was great. But really, the thing that was fantastic that night was like the 40% move that Oracle made that day.
Which was insane. And I what I said last night on Fast Money, or actually, excuse me, on the overtime with Morgan and John, I said I went back and I looked at the tweets and I watched the videos, people tripping over themselves to say about this new paradigm for Oracle and how this was going to be the next, $2 or $3 trillion company based on that contracts they signed and that revenue that they were seeing. And what we said at the time, and we wound up being correct, is that's great, except that what earnings you to get on the back of it, and at what cost. And then all of a sudden, people started talking about their credit default swaps. And you saw the stock go from basically 345. I think we got down to 185 or 190 recently.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's an overshoot to the downside. What I will say is, and what I'll stand by, I think there's a bounce in this stock. And I think the bounce gets you to the gap, which was created around 245 or 250. And I think if and when it gets there, you take profits and then maybe sell the double, Dan.
All right. So it's interesting. And your thought process, I think, is very logical. My thought process is that I'm skeptical that they're going to have anything to say that's going to assuage, the bears. Okay. You see this bounce. It's hard here. And Obi, we're going to go to the options chain in a second. It's hard here because I think whatever they say, they're going to be full of shit. Okay. Like that's my 2 cents. But it might cause the stock, to your point, to rally. But if you nailed this thing above 300, meaning like you got short or you bought puts or you sold call spreads or you did whatever, and you were taking some cues, like all of a sudden the CDS started picking up, the 5-year CDS. And if you haven't covered your short right now, you should be neutered. Okay. Like let's be clear. Now, you've had this bounce. The sentiment's changed a little bit, right? I don't know. To me, I could see the stock guy gapping up 240. What was the level that you said?
245, 250, which was sort of the lower end of that gap that we had to the upside.
All right, I want to go lower. See that big reversal day that we had? I want to say like a month ago, a little higher. Yeah. What was the high on that day? And what was the day? You got to go up. It was probably 235 a little bit. Here, move. Yeah. And go the other way with the chart. Go the other way, please. Keep going. See that reversal day right there, the big red, that bar. I don't know, maybe you get to the high of that, maybe you get to 30 or something like that. And then I think you get the vol crush, Obi, and then I think you start thinking about put spreads would be my take. What thoughts there on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tricky one. I looked back on the last 8 quarters of Oracle historical volatility, aka the realized move relative to the implied move, and it doesn't give you any help there. 4 and 4, meaning 4 times implied volatility was correctly priced or overpriced the move, and then 4 times the actual move outpaced implied. So not much edge there. Looked at the option skew on these, not seeing much of an option skew. And for those that are unfamiliar, look at your option chain. Take a look at the money price, or we'll call it 220. The 230 calls trading 770. The 210 calls trading, so a slight call skew now on the open today. A little bit of skew in the options on the call side of the chain. But we've got an implied volatility of 170%. at the money straddle trading about $23. Dan, that's what, like a 10-ish, 12%, 10, 11% move.
Yeah, like 10 and a half. Show us the simulated return really quickly on that straddle just to kind of get a sense. So if you were to buy the move, you need a $23 move in either direction, right? Just to break even, especially on a short dated. That's a tough way to trade, people. You know what I mean? And so you better have conviction, or you better be protecting a position one way or another to get long either side of that option, right? Like because we talk about it. If you were to, let's just say, buy that at the money, put the 220 strike, and it costs you 11 and a half bucks, let's call it 11, you need a move all the way down to 209 just to break even, right? Or the flip side for the call. So, and you need to do that in 2 trading days. So I'm a little skeptical. Guy, do you get my point though? Is obviously I'm pretty bearish on this thing. Obviously, the stock got totally wiped out, and I get where you're coming from. But for me, I just think there's nothing incremental that they're going to be able to say about this order that they got from OpenAI. This is a company that literally put out a memo to all their employees saying code red, code red. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know, man. I think there's another thing like Obi just said about the spoos. I think you sit on your hands a little bit.
Fair. If you're really waiting for that, listen, there's no reason to do anything. As Obi said, you can sit and sort of be a spectator, which is also fine. If you have the same view that Dan has, which, by the way, I share, I think our levels are a little bit different. I think what you're hoping for is that potential move to the levels that I talked about, and then maybe try to take a shot on the next leg lower to the downside, which would make some sense. So the only thing I think you and I separate the two of us is you think it sort of stops at 230. I think it has potential somewhere between 245 and 250.
All right. So Obi, how long does it take if we look at IV, okay, in Oracle really quickly, how long does it take to get that 1-day action like out of the options? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it and do you guys have a rule? Because we get asked this question all the time, right? Like, so we talk about calendars. You sell a short dated, you buy a longer dated. That's gonna basically take advantage of that too. But how quickly do you see a lot of that premium come out of options?
So you usually see a really good chunk come out on the open, right? Just the mechanical side of this, what happens is you get the announcement tonight, markets move after hours, you get pre-market trading in the morning, and then what market makers will start doing is they'll start trying to figure out where the market clearing volatility will be, which is just essentially what price are they willing to trade at. And once they figure that out, that kind of sets your opening print. Typically, and I don't want to say this is a definite, typically you usually see in a 1-day move like this, about half the vol come out by the end of the following day, usually, unless some other, like the earnings are just so incredible, like the NVIDIA earnings we had a couple years ago, the Oracle earnings from Hood Summit, where like the stock just starts doing something crazy. But yeah, there's usually a period in the first few hours of trading where some of that vol will stay in the option. So if you're selling that straddle, you're not going to get that depletion right away. You kind of have to wait it out and figure out if the stock going to stay range bound. But usually by the end of the following day, that thing starts really bleeding out. And in this case, this is a Wednesday night earnings. We still have 2 days left in these options. So not all of that volatility or time decay is going to come out until sort of the stock settles down, and then we get closer to Friday and markets kind of know what's what. But the important thing is, if you're trading these, you're buying these options directionally, you've got a big expected move in this stock. And if you don't get it right away, you're climbing uphill, you're swimming upstream.
We love having Obi on, Dan.
He's the man. And just to put a pin on that is like, okay, let's say your number is 235 on a $220 stock. I mean, selling the weekly 235, let's say that's in line with the implied move, and buying a longer day, maybe it's a Jan 235, you'll have an easy double if that thing is 230, right? Obi, like, because you're going to see basically that 230 in another day or so, right? You'll see the premium come out of that, and it'll melt, like you said, 24 hours after. And if it does go higher towards that strike, then that longer dated one is going to gain deltas there. So, all right. Well, we like calendars. We love Obi, as Guy just said. We appreciate you being here, Obi. We'll see you. Whoa.
Real quick, just before I leave, some other movies we forgot. You ready?
Go.
High Fidelity. Great John Cusack.
Yeah.
Uh,
And you know, Jack Black was in that, one of his first movies, I think.
at record stores on the west side of Chicago in Wicker Park. You've got The Color of Money. People forget that movie starts out in Chicago.
There you
Dude,
go.
That's a
Paul
Newman.
Newman to me is like he's on the, what would you call it, guy? The Pantheon, the Parthenon.
He's in the Parthenon for sure.
I just saw a clip of Slapshot, by the way, when the Hanson brothers are called out to do a little damage on the ice there. And by the way, part of that was filmed at the Syracuse War Memorial.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so that, all right, love that.
Uncle Buck classic. You've got Backdraft classic, firefighter movie.
Backdraft.
Baseball. Don't forget, you've got Rookie of the Year. You've got Hardball with Keanu Reeves. That was a classic one.
No one ever saw that, by the way.
It was a great. It had some good moments.
All right, so Guy, this is question for you. There is a movie with John Belushi that starts in Chicago. Do you know this movie?
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
No, Continental Divide. He is a reporter he's like an investigative reporter at like the Chicago Sun-Times. Obi, do you know this movie? And he's like doing something. He's investigating the mob, and they're trying to kill him. And he goes into the mountains and meets some woman. He's living in some freaking
Continental
thing.
Divide.
Have you seen the movie?
No.
I've never seen it. I'm looking at it right now.
I got one for you. This is about last night. Rob Lowe and Demi Moore.
Yep.
Yeah. And Jim Belushi was in that movie.
Sure.
The chat that out. And don't forget Adventures in Babysitting.
That great movie.
You're
great
kidding.
movie.
Guy,
No,
you're
it's
kidding.
like Elizabeth Shue. It's a great movie.
Guy had a lot of time.
When they go into the blues bar, and it was fantastic.
Guy had a lot of time for Elizabeth Shue.
And
you guys come to Chicago. We'll do the tour of some of these places, because a lot of these places, these bars and restaurants are still there. You still can go see them.
I want to go to Wrigleyville and hang out with Obi before a Cubs game. That's what I want to do.
I went to Wrigley for the first time this baseball season.
Yeah, you did. You went with our Moneyline friends.
Sure did.
I wish I could. My Chicago White Sox got the #1 draft pick last night.
Yeah, you Obi. Okay, I respect you. I love you. The fact that you're bringing up the baseball draft is fucking embarrassing.
Oh, yeah.
So
there it is.
Because whatever we can get, Guy. We got to take whatever we can get.
No,
family show. All right, Obes, we got to get out of here.
By the way, you mentioned melting. Dan, remember you just said that word?
Yeah.
Yesterday was Margaret Hamilton's birthday.
Don't know her.
Yeah, you do.
Who is she?
Obi? The late Margaret Hamilton.
What's the
when
movie?
you hear the word melting, it doesn't mean anything to you?
Like a melting ice cube.
West. Melting.
No.
What'd you just say?
Which the West?
There, Obi knows. I'm melting. That's right. Margaret Hamilton. She was Dan is like, oh my God. She basically is the gold standard for people that want to portray anything wicked or evil. I mean, she set the effing bar with her role as the Wicked Witch of the West.
Oh, Wicked. These two movies are
yeah, they suck.
Well, I have not seen them, but all right, Obes. See you next Wednesday, brother. We appreciate it.
Well,
guys. So what are you? He did go away. We love him.
All right. So what am I watching? I think you're right to bring it up. I think there's going to be some squaring up as we get closer. I mean, people are going to trade around the edges, which is the right thing to do. I don't think you necessarily want to have a huge position going in unless you are convinced one way or another. I'm not convinced of anything. But what I'll tell you is the move in gold, the move in silver, the move in bond market here in the United States, global bond market, suggests to me that there's something brewing beneath the surface that favors the downside in the broader equity market. And although the Fed, again, I think it's a foregone conclusion the 25 basis point cut will happen. And I don't necessarily want to hear about the hawkish tone in the cut the way Doug does. I don't know what they can deliver that the market's going to sort of champion. So I think there's some downside potential here, Dan.
Yeah, just the one thing I would say is, like, what if Fed Chair Powell just comes to the conclusion, you know what, my life for the next 6 months is going to be so much easier if I just leave the door open for another cut.
Maybe, but then I hear you, but I think this is and I know you're sort of saying that tongue in cheek, but I also think this is a guy that I think he's principled, and I think he believes what he believes, and the dissenting voices effectively are people that are auditioning for a job, and that's to me problematic.
All right, guy, on the way out, our main man, Doug Cass, he's got Blues Brothers. Hoop Dreams did not make Hoop Dreams. And this is a classic. It was a very depressing movie. The opening scene, you just want to kind of just go and get in the fetal position. Ordinary People. You remember Ordinary People?
I do. That's a very sad movie. Then is that one where I cry?
You do cry. I think Robert Redford directed that. Is that correct? Robert Redford. And then the last one he has, it's not on my list. A man with a golden. Oh, The Sting. That's one of your favorite movies.
The Sting is in Chicago. It's, you know what?
I didn't know.
Yes.
And then he said
Doyle Lonigan. You're gonna remember that. You follow.
We just mentioned Robert Redford and Paul Newman, by the way, two of my all-time faves.
Yeah.
R.I.P. And then the last one he mentions, and I've never seen it, but it's obviously one of his favorites, Mean Girls.
Mean Girls.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be a good movie. I've not seen it.
I
think like Reese Witherspoon is in that.
All right. Of every movie, no, she's not. Of every movie that Paul Rudd was in it. Of every
was he a mean girl?
No, he was like the friend of one of them, I think. I mean, I guess I have seen it a bit, but of every movie that we just mentioned, if you had to choose one to sit down, like that's the one you're
Sting is Sting is just a ridiculous movie.
I love it too. The movie that I think is most entertaining of all those, well, there's two: Blues Brothers and Ferris Bueller's. They're obviously very different, but Blues Brothers is amazing. Who are all those cameos? Aretha Franklin.
I've never seen Blues Brothers.
Are you kidding me? They're on a mission from God.
Yeah,
it's a great movie. They're trying to get the.
Were they really?
Yeah. Do you ever see Belushi when he was on SNL and he and Aykroyd are doing the Blues Brothers? Obviously, that's where the movie came from. Did you ever see him do the cartwheels? It's insane.
No.
He was a big man. And then you ever see, and this is insane. You ever see Farley do the cartwheels on SNL?
Tom Farley? He's a pretty athletic guy.
He is an athletic guy. It's not Jim Farley. It's not Jim Farley either.
They're all related, by the way.
Tom Farley's not related to them.
I think they're all sort of some bloodline.
Well, it's called being Irish. Isn't that what you call them?
The Irish.
All right.
You don't want to mess with the Irish, by the way.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we'll do great movies from Boston. The Town, which is a great movie.
Oh, Boston movies. That's a great call.
It's a great movie. The Town is a great movie.
So that's Ben
Affleck,
and it's a really, really
Renner,
dark.
Jeremy Renner, and
And you know who else is in that? John Hamm.
John Hamm is great.
I love John Hamm.
That's a good movie. It's gritty. And you know what? Blythe, what's her name? Master. No, what the hell?
Oh, no.
The woman, Blake Lively. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. She plays a little troubled young woman.
Well, aren't we all troubled?
Yeah. Ben Affleck on a scale like
9.
Really? Do you think he's a better director than he is actor?
Wow.
He directed Argo, which is an amazing movie.
Argo, fuck yourself. I remember that. He also, think about what he did in Good Will Hunting. It was him and Matt Damon. That's brilliant.
Wrote it. Some people think they didn't write it.
No, I don't even think what you want.
Ben Affleck directing. Let's just do this. All right. Wow. So he
Gone
directed.
Girl, I think he did Gone Girl.
Gone Baby Gone.
No, Gone Girl.
Oh, he was in a movie called Gone Baby Gone. Yeah, he's not my favorite.
I love him. I think he's great.
Did you see The Accountant and The Accountant 2?
He was great. This Accountant 2 sucked. The Accountant, the first one, was very good.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. I love him. I love Leo. I love Brad Pitt. Who else am I fanboying? Matt Damon, definitely.
I'm a huge Ryan Gosling fan. Like he's He's my man. I love that.
I like the guy that's the driver and all that was in what's his name? The guy that was a diver in the Canadian or the Russian Olympic team. He always plays like a sort of
Russian.
a badass.
He always plays a Russian.
What's his name? Why can't I think of his name? Oh, please hold on. He was in the movie with Donald Sutherland and about the Italian heist. Hold on. Italian Job.
Oh, the Italian Job.
Yeah.
Oh, you're thinking of Mark Wahlberg.
No, not Mark. You
like The Departed?
Jason Statham.
Yeah, I like him.
Ed Norton's a great actor too, by the way.
Yeah, but another good Boston movie, The Departed.
The Departed, unbelievable.
What about
Nicholson is
amazing,
genius.
What about Mystic River?
So we're doing Dark, Sean Penn, Mystic River.
I'm sorry, we're basically Goodwill Hunting.
Well,
there's a lot.
Okay, we can't do Boston tomorrow.
Let's do L.A. tomorrow.
No, LA's not a city. LA's a fucking county. It's not a city.
You could have done Chinatown. I'll bet you that's one of Doug's favorite movies.
Yeah,
you could do L.A. Confidential.
I'm just not.
You do Beverly Hills Cop 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Big Lebowski.
We can do Detroit movies. That would be 48 hours.
Yeah, and it would be Axel starts in Detroit.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah,
I think they were in Detroit.
You know what's another great Detroit movie?
Maybe not, I don't know.
True Romance, which I've been trying to get Bill to watch. Tarantino wrote it. Tony Scott directed it. It's got a murderer's row of actors. Okay, Christian Slater. You got Christopher Walken. You got Dennis Hopper, you got James Gandolfini, you got Val Kilmer.
Sure. Val Kilmer was so excited about being in Heat. Like the only thing he asked for, he wanted to be on like the poster for the movie. Yeah. He was, if you go back and look, he was right in the middle between Pacino and De Niro.
Yeah.
And apparently, like all these special forces people show the video of Val Kilmer. Remember the gun scene in the street?
Yeah, it's brutal.
Because he trained to do that, and they show that how quickly he was able to reload. It's like a training video. Little known fact.
By the way, I have issues with characters in movies. Like you like his character, you like him, you're rooting for him, but he dropped so many people in that scene. He dropped cops, right? Like
they weren't vests.
No, they weren't. I mean, like, how do you like? I have a hard time rooting for those guys who are taking out innocent folks.
I rooted for Michael Corleone.
Of course you did. Of course you did. Tom Hagen, you were rooting for?
I love Tom. Despite his ethnicity, yes, I like Tom Hagen.
But I that I have one issue with Hagen, and that's when they killed the prostitute for
you're making a big deal. If you watch his facial expressions, he was not all that happy about it. Remember, he made when
I know, but it happened. Said no one's gonna see that she's gone. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing.
She has no family.
Not cool.
All that's left is our friendship.
She did have a life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. I just feel
like he was the coach in North Dallas 40.
Who? Robert Duvall? Burt was it? Who was it? I've never seen that movie, by the way.
If you recall, the senator. He was the coach in North Dallas.
He's a bit of a badass. He's like he always plays an asshole. You ever notice that?
Well, he had it coming to him. He was so
Senator Geary
and arrogant.
Senator Geary. You know he's also
Corleone. You know what?
You know what he's also in? Do you remember the beginning of Apocalypse Now when and you know who else is in that scene? You know when he's giving
when they go get Martin Sheen.
They're giving Martin Sheen, yes, that was a messed up scene. They're giving him the assignment, right? And you know who else is in that scene? One of his early movies, Harrison Ford.
Yes, you are correct.
Very young Harrison. Hey, listen.
You know what one of his first movies was?
It was the one with in the 50s. It was like
correct.
Sop Hop and you know what it was? I'll tell you what that movie was.
American Graffiti.
American Graffiti. And then, Han Solo, Indiana Jones. I mean, those two.
Oh, I love Han Solo. when he builds the mountain in his dining room.
You know what that is? That's a reference to Close Encounters of a Third Kind.
All those movies suck.
What is the third kind in that movie?
I'm not really sure.
Is it the third kind? Close Encounters?
Well, that is third kind is when they beam your ass up to wherever they're going.
Richard Dreyfuss. Who's also in one of your favorite movies. Jaws. With the great
Robert Shaw. I don't
who
think
was
people
also
realize
in
the
who was
genius
also
Robert.
in a movie
Take
that,
Him, Compel him, 1, 2, 3. He was in The Sting.
but also
he was in Force 10 from Navarone.
one other.
Oh, he was in The Deep.
There you go.
Come on.
For any of you folks who think that we're just bad at the stock market, which maybe we are.
I
don't
am. I'm not good at many. This shit I can do all day.
Oh, the movie stuff. You ever play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon?
Maybe we'll do that tomorrow with Amanda. By the way,
right.
Amanda's
great.
We have to get out. I have to take a leak. It's been almost an hour.
All right, peeps. Thanks to Obi. That's Mike Obucina. He's the head of research at Robinhood. Thanks to Guy Adami with all his movie knowledge. Thanks to Ben Affleck, I think, because he's a big fan of the show.
100%.
Fan of the show.
By the way, you know who else is a fan of the show? Butters. We got him tomorrow.
We do have Butters. And thank you, Doug, for your contribution on
every day.
Well, but on the movie stuff, he was like Johnny on the spot. So let's do Miami tomorrow. You want to do Miami?
Scarface. Come on. It's the begin and end right there, bitches.
All right. See ya.